Hi guys, this is Mike with TimeMojo.com, and I'm going to be doing another video review of my student who is stuck at 10 NL and trying to move up. Okay, so this first hand we have Ace King under the gun, and we get squeezed out of the cutoff. It's a snap squeeze, and that's just kind of important to note because that kind of lets me think that this guy probably has a range here of all of his premiums and probably several broadways that he squeezes here by default. So given that is his range, I think the worst thing we can do is shove here, because a shove, which kind of makes sense because he has a small stack and you just want to get it in, is really not optimal here, because what happens is you push out all those broadways that we beat. Whereas if you make this like 250, 260, you give him the chance to screw up by shoving in ace jack here because he thinks you could be weak. So just something to think about. Don't always just do what you think is standard and shove here. It's absolutely not standard. And while you're at it, remove the word standard from your vocabulary, because the only thing standard is not to fold aces pre-flop. So alright, this hand we raise kings under the gun, and then we get snap 3-bet by a kind of tight reg, and it's a min 3-bet, and we also get a snap call out of the blinds, and this guy's a 12-10, so you can probably conclude that his range is going to mostly be set mining type hands here. So that's important to know if this ends up being a three-way pot. So we 3-bet to $1.80, which I think is a bit of a mistake of sorts, because I think we want to make it small enough that we get three-way action here, because you definitely want this guy to come along and set mine because he's going to miss a lot. So anyway, we make it $1.80 and the tight reg calls. And on this flop, I would probably assign the range of this guy to pretty much exclusively overcards and big pocket pairs. So based on that range, I don't really like a bet of 260 here, because what you're doing is you're pushing out all of the overcards and keeping in like queens, which is good, but he's gonna fold all the hands that we don't want him to fold. So I actually really like a bet here of something like $1.50 or even $1, because it's a 4-bet pot and we can easily get the money in by the river. But if we bet $1 here, you kind of induce him to spaz out with overcards, or maybe he just calls 1 or 2 with ace king ace queen because he just can't fold to those small bets, which in my experience, people at these stakes don't fold to those small bets enough. So just something to think about rather than just go for the standard button here. And make sure that you remove standard from your vocabulary, because there are no standard plays. Okay, this next hand we isolate a fish who is pretty loose, never really raises pre-flop, and he folds to a lot of c-bets. And we isolate him with jack-8 of diamonds out of position, which I think is okay. I don't really like a limp. I think we should take control and use the fact that he's passive against him. So I think that's a well-played isolation. And our hero reaches for the 3/4 pot button and bets, which he usually reaches for the 2/3 pot button. So I'm glad he at least recognized that this is an excellent board to bet bigger on. I would even bet bigger here, probably 80 cents, just because if he has something like a pair plus flush draw, he's gonna call no matter what you bet. So I think just bet big here and you'll be okay. And our fish snap calls, which is really awesome, because that's just a really strong indication that he has exactly what we think he has, just a pair and a flush draw, or a flush draw. I think at best here he has a jack, but I mean, that's not really our concern. There's plenty of draws in his range to think we can get multiple streets of value here. So again, our hero bets 3/4 pot, which I think is okay. I'd probably do about $1.80 at least. And I know it's just 2 BB more, but that really adds up if you do it a lot of times. So fish snap calls, And this is something I don't like that the hero does. He decides to shove here. And I think the only hands our villain can really shove with, or I mean call with here, are better than ours. The only thing you may fold out that we would want to fold out are better jacks that he may think are no good by this point, just because the board is so coordinated and scary. So, but I know that's not what our hero was trying to do. So I think what we should do is bet something like $1.50 here, so that all of the weak pairs or flush draws that hit pairs on the turn on the river can call, and a 9 could call as well. So I think something between 1/4 to 1/2 pot is good here. And this is just something that no one really does at the stake, where if you do this, you're adding, I mean, you're talking about 15 and 20 big blinds in pots like this that you're missing out of. So something to keep an eye on. Okay, so this is going to be the last hand of the video. And we have ace jack suited on the button and are facing a cutoff raise, and we call, which I think is totally fine. We flop 2 pair, which is nice, but first I kind of want to explain about this board and this villain's actions, because it's really important to know how we should act in response. We have a villain who's pretty loose pre-flop, but he looks a little passive post-flop. We have a board texture that is very scary and very strong, so his c-bet on this board likely means he has something. Another thing I want to point out is he took 9 seconds to bet over 80% pot. And whenever somebody takes that long to make a bet, oftentimes they're thinking about sizing and they have a stronger hand and they want to make sure they play it right. Because let's face it, it's really hard to flop hands in these games. So with that, I think a raise is bad here, because the range he has that plays back against a raise has us crushed. It's like jacks, kings, aces, queen 10, diamonds that have combo draws, all those types of things, and we lose to that range. So it looks like our hero kind of just makes like a standard raise, or a raise he thinks is standard, which again, like I've said before, you really shouldn't be making any standard plays. It's just you really need to be thinking about your opponent's range in every single spot, and when you start doing that, you'll really figure out the best play to make. So our villain takes half of a minute, 30 seconds to 3-bet us, and this, just a quick timing tell trick, whenever somebody takes over 30 seconds or around there to make a really big play, they're often very strong. And the reason is because if a player is thinking of making a bluff, after they take that long to think about if they should do it, they oftentimes feel vulnerable and weak. And when you're about to make a big bluff, those are the last things you want to feel. So they often will just chicken out. So if somebody takes this long to make a play, they're often strong, not weak. So I think we should fold to this raise because of how strong he looks. And I mean, it's unfortunate because our hero feels obligated to call this, because he feels, well, if I raise the flop for value, I can't fold now. So unfortunately, our hero sees his hand through the end after the villain shoves the turn, and the villain shows up with a set of jacks. So unfortunate, but as long as you learn from this, mistakes are always plus EV. So that's the video. If you guys have any more questions or comments or concerns or anything like that, you can post them below or email me at support@timemojo.com. Thanks for watching, guys, and good luck at the tables.